Welcome to Fear and Greed, the week ahead. I'm Sean Aylmer, and as always, I'm joined by economist Stephen Koukoulas. You'll find him at thekook.com, TheKouk, thekook.com, and on X using the handle thekook. Stephen, good morning.
Very good morning to you, Sean.
Now, I've known you for many years. I've never called you the Kouk. You're always just Stephen to me.
Yeah, well, the Kook came about, obviously it's short for Koukoulas, and it was my daughter that sort of gave me that christening some time ago. So when I set up my email address when I was living in London, it was Stephen at the Kook, and it sort of stuck. And I thought, well, that's a bit cheeky and funny, and, takes the tone down a bit from being too serious about the economy, even though it's a very serious topic.
It is. It is. Although last week's labour force numbers were just a little bit cheeky, I would hazard a guess.
Yeah, look, they were sort of in that groove. They didn't cause financial markets to move when they came out. And to me, that's always a bit of an indicator of just how strong, weak, or indifferent they were. And so 40,000 jobs created in the month, which is good. And I think my friends at Commonwealth Bank Economics Department, who do some great research, they've actually calculated that you need, or Australia needs, 35 to 40,000 jobs per month to keep the unemployment rate broadly steady, given the very strong lift in population growth that we've got. Lo and behold, we got the 40,000 jobs, and at the second decimal point, we rounded down the unemployment rate from 4.1 to 4.0. So, look, you take that. Given how weak the economy's been, and I think last week we discussed those pretty soggy GDP, retail sales numbers. So, in a way, it was a pleasant surprise that it wasn't worse.
Right, this week, what have we got? The Reserve Bank board meeting. It's a big one.
Yeah, so tomorrow, 2:30 Sydney time, they announced their decision on interest rates. They now have 2-day meetings, this afternoon, Monday afternoon, that carries over into Tuesday with the announcement at 2:30. And the governor, Michelle Bullock, she's going to give a press conference about an hour after the announcement's made public. Nobody that I'm aware of is expecting a change. The money markets have got about a 0% chance of rates going up, down, or anywhere else, or just sideways. So in a sense, it might sound a bit ho-hum, a bit, not a lot of excitement on a no change decision, but that's a really important but. A lot has happened since the last meeting. As we just sort of said, we've got disappointing GDP numbers. That inflation rate ticked up. Last week we had the US Federal Reserve leaving interest rates steady, but still anticipating lower rates later rather than sooner in the US. That was an important indicator. And so all of those sort of things will go into the analysis that the bank will put out and the questioning that I'm sure Michelle Bullock will get at the press conference afterwards. Just how weak will the economy be before we get unemployment going up, before inflation comes down. So that wonderful linkage between different parts of the economy will be what we economists will be looking at for clues on, whether rates are going down, up, steady for another few months, and, when and how much they might change by.
How much do you think that the Reserve Bank cares about what happens in the US and then other places like the European Central Bank and Bank of Canada? Last week, of course, we had pretty good inflation figures really for the month of May, but the Fed then became a little more hawkish about when rates were going to be cut.
Yeah, and just recently, as you were just alluding to, the European Central Bank and the Bank of Canada have both started their rate cutting cycles. And we had the Deputy Governor, Andrew Houser, who's the recently appointed Deputy Governor of the RBA. So he's, with all due respect, finding his feet and all the rest of it. And he gave a very good speech, a little chat, I think it was, I can't remember the date, about a week or 10 days ago. And he said that those developments in the international economy won't sway the Reserve Bank. But then on the other hand, what's happening in the global economy does impact Australia, and therefore what the Reserve Bank says. So I think it was a roundabout way of he, as Deputy Governor of the bank, saying, look, just because the Europeans and the Canadians have started cutting interest rates, we don't automatically follow the direction. However, if they're cutting because growth is weak, inflation's falling, the US joins them in September, October, November-ish with a rate cut. And then we get our friends in New Zealand possibly cutting interest rates, the UK possibly cutting interest rates. They had disappointing labour market numbers last week too. Then we're going to be part of the global story. Not that we're following central banks, we're going to be part of the global story where growth is weak and inflation is coming down. So if we think about the rate hiking cycle from late 2021 to, the middle of 2023, we didn't move in lockstep with the other central banks, but when they were putting up, we put them up too. Not as much in some instances, a little bit later or a little bit sooner than other central banks. So what happens in the global economy does matter to us.
It's going to be a fascinating few months, Stephen. I mean, we have an election cycle coming in too. We don't know when that is. It has to be done by May next year. We have the US elections. We certainly, I think most people would agree, the next move in rates in the US will be down, and in all likelihood in Australia will be down. It's just a fascinating little period, like the politics and economic cycles running together a bit.
They are, and they're running in the UK too, because it's
Of
election
course, yeah.
very soon. And of course, the Conservatives are in deep trouble. You know, they're I think going to lose pretty comfortably, so it seems. So, whereas in the US, it's, as far as I can tell from the polls, it's line ball. You know, here, I think we've had a news poll last week, 50-50 or thereabouts. And of course, a year's a long time to the next election, and things can change very, very rapidly. So, economics does matter in politics. That, you know, I think it was Paul Keating said, if you get the economy right, people will re-elect you. You know, if you're the incumbent and you've got a job, you're getting rising real wages, the budget's in decent shape, people say, oh, you know, you guys, whoever it is, Labor, Liberal, Labor, whatever, you've done a pretty good job. I'm feeling okay, so I'm going to re-elect you. Whereas if you presiding over recessions and falling living standards, the electorate's going to blame someone, and inevitably it's the incumbent government.
Fair enough. Stephen, enjoy your week.
Will do. Thanks, Sean.
That was economist Stephen Koukoulas, better known as The Kook. You can find him at thekook.com and follow him on X using the handle The Kook. I'm Sean Aylmer, and this is Fear and Greed, the week ahead.